Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us as we talk all things faith, family, and fitness. A special thanks to Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency for their support of Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community one family at a time. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. Hey, this is Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families, and we have a special guest.
Talking about...
You are the host.
I'm the co-host. Remember, we determined that the last time.
I know.
Yeah. You're so strange.
Hey, how are you doing, lovely Linda?
I'm doing great. Man, we have had a great month in Batesville, Indiana, and
Yes,
we have just spent the last 4 weeks working with some families, some educators in the Batesville community, talking about families rock. And so tonight's show, hun, is going to be kind of a follow-up to that we're going to kind of take some of the questions that we got. We've been doing this for several weeks, and tonight's questions are going to be specifically about healthy boundaries, healthy relationships. And so, man, they had some questions.
You know, yes, they did. And I think we just, as you kind of initiated, I would like to also add to the salute to the Batesville community. They just have done a fantastic job rallying around this. We've honestly, we thought we've done this type of thing before, and if we can get a halfway decent show of parent participation, that's great. And so we have just been blown away each session. Mm-hmm. Yours probably a little bit more well attended than mine. So, but we'll see. I'm all right with all that. But anyway, we want to thank the principals, Brad Stone King and Dana Cassidy, for just getting behind this and getting their teachers revved up about it. And then just the parents. You know, the cool thing about it, we've done 4 sessions, and we've had a great number of them attend all 4 sessions. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Because schedules are busy.
Yeah, and we received a grant from the Rising Sun Community Foundation and just allowed us to incentivize this program for the teachers in the classrooms, for the parents and the families. And so we really piloted this program on purpose in the Batesville community, just knowing that they are engaged, they are involved. A lot of parents who want to see their families grow and just get better. And so, you know, you never arrive, hon. Right. You and I was just telling a client this today, we are a work in progress, and we definitely don't have all the answers, for sure. No,
and you know, I think as we've talked about many times on the show, you know, we had our 2 biological children, and one methodology or philosophy of parenting and techniques and all that seemed to work for them. And then when you have different kids, not that the philosophy changed, because our philosophy has not changed, but how we implement that and carry it out and what works, what doesn't work, it starts to throw curveballs at us. And so, you know, we've had to hit the reset button many times.
Well, and like you said, 2 biological sons who are 29 and 26, and then adopting 3 more into our home kind of threw us for a loop, and definitely had to help us to rethink. I think it's made us better, definitely has challenged us. And but we're going to get to that. But, hun, before we do, we got to pay some bills.
Yes, we do. So we want to first thank Mansfield Insurance Agency. They have built a reputation in business built on caring, listening, and protecting their customers. So Mansfield Insurance Agency began in 1981 by Jim Mansfield and has been dedicated to serving individuals and businesses in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So if you have an insurance need, call Mansfield Insurance Agency at 800-230-3927.
We also want to thank Maxwell Construction. Maxwell Construction was founded in 1988 by John Maxwell, and since that time, Maxwell Construction has grown and expanded to become one of the most recognized commercial construction companies in the tri-state. What separates Maxwell Construction apart from their competition is their emphasis on being service-oriented to help meet the individual needs of their customers. So whether it's a school, hospital, restaurant, apartment, or retail center, Maxwell Construction is able to meet your needs. Call them today at 812-537-2200.
All right, very good. So, you know, it is kind of interesting as we're starting to wind down what we always kind of think of as the school season, and not that we're winding down yet. We have quite a bit.
I was going to say we got a while to go.
But when we come into the spring season, all of a sudden we have families kicking up into a lot of outdoor activities and those kinds of things. And we find that a lot of times some of the work that we get to do around here, it starts to slow down, but it hasn't been.
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't
I
been.
was just
It's
doing some
staying
numbers,
busy.
and man, it is definitely kept picking
Yeah,
up.
so that's good and that's bad, right? It's good for Rock Solid families and that we're staying busy, but it's also a sign that there's a lot of people out there still in need. And so one of the things that we do want to mention, along with the different things that we offer here at Rock Solid Families with finishing exercise classes, which are still Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. and Tuesday, Thursday at 6 p.m., we are going to make a change on our Saturday morning, and that's going to begin at 8 a.m. on April 18th. And we're going to kind of refer to that as our Strong Dads Day.
Strong Date Saturday.
So, ladies, don't feel like you've been kicked out of the gym completely.
The ladies are.
but this has been one of those times where guys have kind of rallied around this. It's been a good opportunity for us to reach in. It's one of those days that we can get a lot of dads in here. So we're going to dedicate our mornings to seeing what we can do to get more dads in here.
Saturday morning.
Saturday mornings.
Yeah. Don't kick our ladies out the other Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. They'll be
come
really
with
mad
a
at
vengeance.
you.
Yes. So anyway, that's what is going to be rolling, and that's again April 18th is when that actually starts at 8 a.m. and we'll go to about 9:30. We're going to do a regular workout, and then we're going to turn that into what I would think of as a Bible study or a dad-husband study, okay?
It's awesome.
So we have a lot of fun with that. We challenge each other. It is not like it had been in the past where we did 8 weeks, consecutive weeks, and one topic kind of ran into the next. We're going to make each of them standalone weeks so that if you can make one week but you can't make another, that's fine. I mean, you're not going to be nearly as good of a dad, or are you going to be as strong?
Pressure.
But anyway, you can come as your schedule permits.
Yeah, I love that. And the Strong Dads series that you've done on and off through the year has been cool to see these men kind of come together and just really this fellowship that occurs. So to have that Saturday morning just kind of being reserved for them to come when they can. So all of your past Strong Dads, but also some new ones can come on Strong Dad Saturdays. So that starts April 18th from 8 to 9:30. So we're excited
let's
about
roll.
that.
What do you got? You get some questions for us.
Oh my gosh.
Let's hear these
Yeah,
questions.
so
I'll probably
again-
get them all right, won't I?
So these are questions that came out of our Families Rock series that we did in Batesville, Indiana the past month. And so some of these questions today are going to be stemming from the week we had on healthy relationships, healthy boundaries. So, Hun, I'm going to ask this first question to you because this was one of the questions, and it actually came from a mom. And she wrote, I feel the need to be my child's friend, the good guy, so they don't resort to other things like drugs and alcohol. Is that not good?
Well,
nothing like starting off with an easy one.
Thanks for throwing me a softball. So first off, I have a knee-jerk reaction, but I'm going to put my knee back in its place. And that would really be age-related. And so if this child of yours is 21 years of age or older and dependent or independent completely of you, then we can have the conversation about being a friend. With that being said, even that I would caution greatly because when our older sons were at 21 years of age, we were still very much in a parenting phase, even though they had struck a pretty independent balance with us. So let's roll it back because I'm going to assume because of where these questions came from that this is probably someone under the age of 21,
right. Yeah.
probably a child. And we want to be very, very clear here that the word friend is not one that we even really allow to happen.
Encourage.
We don't encourage. Now let me differentiate. Being a friend and being friendly towards your child are two different things. Okay, there is definitely plenty of time to be friendly and kind and all of these great things, right? The fruits of the Spirit. So these are all great things. So yes, being friendly, but actually like assuming the role of being friend, where you buddy up with your child, where you kind of come to their level and then you also bring them to your level, is totally age inappropriate, and it's really irresponsible. Because I want to think of it a little bit like this: like if I'm going to work for an employer and he is my boss. As soon as he becomes my best buddy, and I'm going to work, and he has the responsibility of making production numbers or money,
Money's
or
the water.
Yeah. As soon as he's got that, and then all of a sudden I become his best buddy.
Yeah.
We have completely muddied the waters on how well we're going to actually perform within the company. And so, not to say that your family is a business company, but in many ways there is a hierarchy of authority that has to be established. And so, you and I, hon, we always talk about the idea of I'm going to start to turn my relationship with my child into a friendship when I trust and understand that our value systems match.
Yeah. And it usually means when they're out of the house, when they're on their own, like you said, independent. And so that starts 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's when they show the responsibility of making those independent, successful decisions. So, hon, I hear you say God did not call us to be their buddy. You're the parent, and your kids may not always like your answer. Just like a boss has to make some tough calls on their employee, as a parent, you have to make some tough calls on your child, and they're not always going to like what you have to say.
No, typically if they've liked what you've said, you probably said the wrong thing.
Exactly. So, all right, that's one question. Here's another one. How do you find a happy medium when your child wants to be friends with somebody that lacks healthy boundaries or good role models? So how do you handle that? Where you don't want to be judgmental and say you can't ever play with them, but you're kind of a little leery about the home life that they're in,
Right.
the boundaries they have. So how would you handle that?
Yeah, because a lot of times the question comes up like, well, we're supposed to be Christ-like. We're supposed to, not pass judgment on anyone. And I think that conversation often gets taken out of context. As a parent, we have the responsibility to raising our kids up to being solid adults, and in our case, Christian adults. And when we are exposing our kids to different value systems, especially those that we don't understand or agree with, we are making a really, really dangerous assumption that our kid is going to know how to deal with that. And so for that reason, we are not just going to willy-nilly let our kids go out and hang out with everybody and act like they're going to be Mother Teresa, because they may, and chances are they do not have the right rudder,
tools, right.
the tool to keep them straight. And so please don't put your child in that predicament. With that being said, you and I have run into this numerous times with our own kids, where there is a child that our kid is maybe spending some time with or hanging out with, and the verdict is still out, right?
You want to give them a fair shake.
Right. We don't know maybe the family background or exactly what this kid's about. And so we set up some boundaries for that, to just say, hey, you know what? If you want to have so-and-so over our house, we would be more than willing to allow them to come over and be in our presence so that we can get to know them and they can get to know us.
Close
we would
supervision.
also be more than willing that if their parents feel the need to want to meet us, then we would go, we could meet them, we could have a phone conversation, whatever. And most of the time we find parents like, you know what, we are so thankful that you just reached out and we had some conversation, because they have the same doubts about us.
Sure.
Imagine other people doubting us. Can you believe that? But there's a reality check that both parents need to do. So anyway, no, I am going to say, you know what, if we don't know about this kid or we don't like what this kid's involved with, then you are not permitted to hang with it.
And I've had a lot of conversations with parents who kind of are on way edge of those spectrums of saying, hey, we got to expose our kids to other value systems and other exposure environments. I get that, but you got to make sure they're equipped.
Right.
You got to make sure they're prepared to handle what they're going to see, what they're going to hear, and how they respond. And so if you're not involved in that, whether it be another friend's house, whether that be going to a certain movie or a concert, I just had this conversation with a 17-year-old who's saying, I'm almost 18, so she should be allowed just to go off to anywhere to do anything without some supervision or some input. So it's a balance. All right, here we go. This next one says, I am the go-to counselor in my family. So how do I rein that in? So, you first want to check, are you being pulled in the middle of some of those situations, where you don't belong? Are they kind of like triangulating, where if I have a problem with my mom, I don't go to my mom, I go to my sister and tell my sister to go to my mom. We want to avoid that. So
sometimes we're in the middle of a gossip circle and we think of it
drama.
as we're providing some counseling service, but really it is just drama.
Yeah. But if you feel like you're the garbage dump for everybody else's issues, it's because you've allowed it. You've allowed others to come and dump their garbage in your yard. And so you got to make a decision to put some healthy boundaries up first and let others know that the dump is closed.
Yeah.
They got to learn to manage their own yard because that's what you got to do, right? So you've probably if you're the counselor go-to and it's gotten out of hand, you've probably communicated through your ways that you are willing to listen to everybody's problems.
Right.
And allow the garbage to be dumped.
Yeah, hon, it's a really interesting point because I think both of us being in the counseling world, you almost become prideful early in your recognition that people come to you. Like, a lot of people come to me, and you become prideful, like somehow you have like answers that people want to hear and you are the fixer. And that can really, really get out of whack quickly because you start to fool yourself and you basically kind of put a big banner on your head that, I'm the dumping post right here. And so it gets crazy. You and I, and again, this is not that I'm anywhere ahead of you in this development, but I got into counseling some years before you did, and then you came in, and I remember, man, you were just like ready to just grab hold of every conversation. And again, that's where I was when I first started. And then all of a sudden you realize, wait, I'm working harder than the people that are bringing stuff to me. And you're starting to get exhausted, and then you start to put boundaries up. Like, you know what? And so one of our rules is we don't work harder than any of our clients.
We're not going to own your stuff either.
You come in and you just, threw out a lot of stuff, and then we gave you some homework and you didn't do that homework. That is a big red flag to us that, okay, it's time for us to start to detach on ownership here. And so that would be a big encouragement that I would have for whoever wrote your question there, that if people aren't doing the work, you just need to put them in their place of saying, this really isn't the conversation that I can have right now.
Or if you are being put in the middle of a triangle that you don't belong in, you need to tell them, you need to go to that person, not come to me. And I was thinking about that Charlie Brown. Who was it that had the sign up for counselor? It was like 5 cents, and they had in session. It was Lucy or somebody that had like their little counseling session that they could do. So Charlie would always come up and get help. Okay, here's your next question. Man, we got a bunch. Okay, how am
I doing so far? Do I have 100% so far?
You have 100%. Yes. How do you set healthy boundaries, and still raise a son to take charge of their life and be a strong man? It was almost like if you do that, you can't get that. So I think they kind of misunderstood what healthy boundaries are.
Yeah, and maybe I'm a little bit confused, and maybe, I don't know, other than my first response to that is healthy boundaries are what create a strong child. We know that because it's actually the beginning of your discipline is going to eventually turn into self-discipline.
Right.
And so boundaries are part of the discipline process. And so even though your kids might think of you as being strict or rigid or mean, the idea that you start to show them, hey, look what kind of fruit you're getting in your life now because you've stayed the course on certain things and you've got some willpower to stand up against things. So that's those boundaries, especially, up through those teenage years, up through 16, 17 years of age, those will start to turn into their own boundaries.
Yes.
And they'll start to use them how that they need to best do
when
that.
you model it for them.
Right.
On the other extreme, hun, this next question kind of goes with that. This person wrote that codependency is a huge issue for them. And how can I establish healthy boundaries? Well, this is the exact opposite, where you're kind of in your kids' world and taking over their decisions and choices and saving them from their consequences. And so we've got to really help reel that back in. And I would say, man, if you feel and you realize that you are codependent and you're kind of enabling your kid, maybe your adult kids, maybe your husband, into some addiction, because research has shown that codependency, a codependent relationship, often leads to very dangerous and destructive behaviors. Whether it is some kind of addiction of porn or drugs or alcohol, a gambling issue that you just kind of dismiss away.
Can't carry a job.
Can't carry a job, and you
relationship.
keep paying their rent. You keep paying their car insurance. I had a mom come up to me the other day, an adult son who has a child out of wedlock, and he is a mess. And this mom is owning it and is spending more time and energy on it than he is. And I'm like, he is 20-something years old.
Right.
You know, that's codependency there. If you're worrying about it and taking more energy out of it than he is.
Codependency oftentimes speaks actually to the weakness of the person who's supposedly in charge. It's their own insecurity. You know, we have 2 older boys, and we talk all the time. We would love to have them living in much closer proximity to us because we miss them. We now they have families. We want to be involved in their lives. We want to see them. We want to get into more of that friendship time with them. But with that being said, one of the biggest things that we are proud about is that they are strong men out doing their thing, taking care of their family. We don't worry about whether they're going to fall into a bad trap of some sort. Not that bad things couldn't happen. That's not what I'm saying. But they have a strong fortitude of what they're working for, and they don't need us. And so now, as parents, we can rest in that. Okay. And so a lot of times we see these parents who are like, oh, I hope they never leave my house. I mean, I'll finish the basement. I'll do whatever. And then they kind of giggle like that's okay. And it's like, wow, what a terrible way to prepare your child based off of your insecurity.
So if this is you, if codependency or enabling is an issue that you deal with, please get some professional help. You know, it's going to be a tough reset. We talk about reset buttons a lot. They're not going to like it when you tell your adult son that he can't be eating chips and salsa in your basement and you pay the rent and you pay his bills and he just sits in there and does nothing. Like, that's not going to go over real well, but it's a conversation you got to have.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. What about when others attack you or ignore your boundaries? Ooh.
I'm not sure who's others. Is it the kids or is it like neighbors or
I think this
somebody?
is other family members. In one particular, I know that somebody had said that her husband doesn't have good boundaries with his parents. And so they ignore them. They kind of attack them. So, and that's where you have to make a decision. You know, do I want a relationship with this person? If this is somebody important like my mom or my son, you know, if so, then do they respect your words? Do they receive your no? If not, you know, you may have to put some emotional distance or some geographic distance between you until they do recognize and respect your boundaries.
Yeah, and I mean, so it takes me back a little bit to how we would work with couples in the marriage process, that two become one, and then so now you are creating your own new family, and the idea that we still hang on to outsiders, and I'll just say, you know, our moms or dads or somebody else, even brothers or sisters, we still want the relationship, but sometimes you have to, just as you said, you have to put a boundary up and say, wait, you know what, if they're messing with the relationship that I have with you, then you and I need to get together and say, okay, wait, what are we going to stand for together? What works for the two of us? And again, sometimes you have to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
And we would encourage that if it's somebody, like if it was somebody on my side of the family that was kind of creating havoc or maybe you felt attacked by, it would be my responsibility to say, hey, we're asking that you respect who we are, what we're doing, just as we want to do the exact same for you. And so tough situation. There's no guarantee there on how that person's going to respond.
Especially if they have unhealthy boundaries. If they don't have any boundaries, I should say. And you make a good point, hon. So if it's your family that I feel threatened by or attacked by, I think it is important that you have that conversation, because it doesn't sound as good coming from the in-law than it does the son. And so, and of course you say, Mom, I love you, but Linda and I, we believe this, or this is what we're going to do. We want our children to be raised in the faith, or whatever, and so it's important that we get on the same page there. Okay. We're doing good. We're doing good. Here's your next one. How do you differentiate, I should say, behavior issues from immaturity? So this question is basically saying, is there maybe some underlying other issues other than immaturity? Right.
So I don't want to misspeak on this, but this would kind of make me think more about, like, when you talk about immaturity, there's a developmental readiness out of each one of us as we mature. Just to kind of simplify things, a child's going to walk when a child walks, and so whether one child walks at 12 months or another one at 18 months, there's neither is right or wrong.
But there's some time frame.
There's some time frame, and then there's what we call some norms, and falling within those norms. And so if a child is acting immature, but it's just more annoying, than anything else, then we kind of help them through that developmental process. And again, I think it's okay. Like you and I have said this before with our kids, and we're not going to apologize for this. Sometimes you're acting like, a 5-year-old or whatever. Because to allow them to continue to waller in that or act at that inappropriate age, and they're not caught on it, it becomes very awkward for other people outside of your home. I mean, if all of a sudden, your 5th grader is talking like a baby around the house, they might think that's cute at first, but then when they're doing that at school, I will tell you from firsthand experience, your teacher does not think that's cute or funny.
And their friends are going to make fun of them. So, we don't like to compare kids, but this is a time when you can look at their same age peers and see if their behavior is typical with their classmates, or does it stick out, like you said, like a sore thumb. That's a clue. So that's the first thing I would see is, what are their peers doing? Is this a normal little temper tantrums? That's, like you said, it's normal for a 2-year-old. But if you're 16 and you're throwing a temper tantrum in the grocery, that's inappropriate. So if you're a parent and you're asking, is there a serious mental disorder or a bipolar or something that needs to be professionally helped and assessed? I would say get some professional help. Pediatricians are great, by the way. They know what's age appropriate. And so that would be my first line of defense is, if you see something that you think is outside the norm, go to your pediatrician and say, this is what's happening. Is this normal? And that way they can tell you. We have a lot of referrals, by the way, from family physicians and pediatricians that are coming to us because of issues that are not in the norm for their peers. Honey,
you're definitely dead right with that. I think one thing I might add to that, just kind of maybe an intermediary sort of stage, is if you're still trying to take in that information to see whether your child's behavior is kind of out of the norm significantly or not, I always say, give your teachers, if your child is still school age, have a meeting with them and give them permission to speak truth to you. Good because point. Your teachers actually spend as much, if not more, time with your child in a social setting. So they have a much better, even than the doctor actually, they have a much better snapshot of how your child is interacting with behaviors and that than most of us.
And how it compares to other secondary second graders.
That's right.
You know?
And
especially a teacher who's been in there for 20 years. They know what second graders normally can do.
Yeah. And you know, we've done that with our own kids and just say, hey, this is kind of what we're seeing. Tell me within your setting, does it stand out? You know, and they're like, well, no, you know what? Maybe it's a little bit on the immature side, but it certainly doesn't stand out significantly.
And you know what, hon? We have found, especially with our 3 younger adopted children, is that if you see something in your home but the teacher isn't seeing it at school, then maybe it's because of what you've allowed or the environment in the home, but something is happening at school that's changing that behavior for the good or the better or the worse. And so we got to do. Okay, we got one last one, and I think we can finish this quickly because we kind of already touched on it. And that is the whole boundaries with high school and college-age children. Mm-hmm. And so I do think, and parents, you kind of said 21, hon, but really age 18, you can't declare, by the way, age 18, I'm an adult, treat me like one, I get to have all those freedoms. But you as a parent do need to start letting go slow. And you got to balance the responsibilities you give them. If they have a car, if they are driving to work, if they make a paycheck, what kind of freedoms are you giving? But what kind of responsibilities? Are they paying rent? Are they paying their car insurance? You know, are they helping pay for college? You know, so you kind of have to balance that. If they want to be treated like an adult, they got to act like an adult.
Right. Well, and I'll take away the age 21 or 18 because I really think so much of this is more their ability to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen 23 and 24-year-olds that still are not even close to being able to be independent.
But that's not healthy. You shouldn't continue to treat them like a baby.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. You would even, you know, at that point you would say, hey, I'm going to have to put even more boundaries on you in terms of what like money I'm going to give you or different things like that, freedoms I'm going to give you. And so, yeah, I mean, the other side of this is, man, we've seen 14 and 15-year-olds that were extremely
independent,
and
successful,
and honest and trustworthy and hardworking. And again, not that you're going to give them the keys to the car or anything like that, but
especially when it's illegal.
But you know, you have to kind of work that within. Here's the one thing: if it ever blew up on you, okay. Would you and your child be able to handle the consequences?
Like if you're what do you mean? What example?
So if all of a sudden you gave your kid a freedom, okay, and all of a sudden they got in big trouble with that, would they be able to get through that? So they went out and they stayed out all night because you took the curfew away, and then the next day they couldn't get up and they got fired from their job. Okay, well then. Obviously, they're not ready to handle that kind of freedom.
So I think there is a shift from the mentor role as the teenagers, more of a friend role. But again, that is only if they are independent, if they are able to make decisions on their own, letting go of the reins and letting the child lead his own life. I mean, honey, isn't that our goal?
Yeah,
I mean, we want to give our children
we talked about that earlier.
Wings to fly. Yeah. So please, mom and dad, we're asking you to have healthy boundaries, but also start to shift that those responsibilities and those freedoms onto our child as we empower them to do those things on their own. I mean, that's our goal. So yeah, anyway, tons of questions. It was a great night. We are so thankful again for the Families Rock series, the Rising Sun Regional Foundation, and their partnership in this endeavor, for the Batesville Community Schools and parents and staff that have helped us make that possible. So we're just so thankful for them.
Hey, can I just add one last thing that kind of comes to my mind? And it only comes to my mind because of the number of meetings I sat in with parents, and always well-intentioned in meeting parents. But when we see ourselves making what is potentially a mistake or creating a habit that is enabling, I can't tell you the number of times that I had parents say, I know I'm probably not doing what I should do, but okay, you know, please stop that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
you're not helping your child.
You're not helping your kid, and you're excusing your own behavior away. Like, well, I just can't help myself. And you know, the one who pays the ultimate price for that is going to be your kid and the generations that follow.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such an irresponsible, oh well, silly me, I can't believe I can't control this. And so please don't give yourself that easy way out. Like, I just am who I am. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Hon, and that reminds me, one of the things we mentioned in this class was we don't want our child to be a victim. We want them to be a victor. And so if you, for instance, have been on welfare and you're teaching your child, hey, you don't want to get a job because you want to continue to collect that welfare paycheck, you're setting them up to be the victim and to be dependent on someone else for the rest of their life. Help them to give them the wings to fly, to be that independent, successful adult that, maybe you were not, but that your child needs to be.
Right. And you're not only setting them up, you're setting the generations that follow. And we see it in our work all the time.
Yeah.
So, hey, we again want to thank the folks from Batesville Community Schools and just all the cooperation that we've had there. If there's any other questions that maybe we have prompted or maybe we didn't do the question justice the way you felt like it needed to be, please contact us. You can reach us at, actually, you can get my email at hutch@rocksolidfamilies.org, or just go to rocksolidfamilies.org, and there's an actual email site there that you can reach out to us.
Okay, so as we close, we again want to thank our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. Please let them know how much you appreciate this programming. This was such an important show, hon. Healthy relationships is one of my favorite topics. Speaking of which, I am starting a new class on April 1st at Whitewater Crossing Christian Church on this very subject. And so I would love to have you. It's from 7 to 8 p.m. It is for 6 straight weeks beginning on April 1st on Wednesdays. And so I would love to have you there. We hope that you will share this information with your family and friends. And again, we just want to thank you all for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard on today's show, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction and Mansfield Insurance Agency. If you have questions you'd like answered on our show, or you want to chime in on something you heard, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time.